Hey folks, Joe Morris with Answers, Heaven Speaks. My clairvoyant daughter Marisa has a show on Wednesday nights on Patreon, on her Patreon page. So she's out running a bunch of errands right now, so she won't be here while I'm going through today's lesson. It's Jesus is going to sneak off to Jerusalem again. He's going to go to what's called the Feast of the Dedication. I don't have anything about worldly things to get into. Really don't want to. It's a beautiful day in California right now. I hope it's a beautiful day wherever you're at. But I'm here for 2 weeks with Marisa. Now, tomorrow, I'm not sure if we're going to have a show tomorrow because we're going to head back to Las Vegas. And the chances of us getting out early enough to get to Vegas in time to do a show is probably slim to almost none. So we may not have something to get out there tomorrow. But we might be able to make it up by, normally I take Saturday off, and we may be able to make it up by having a show on Friday. See, today's Wednesday. Yeah, today's Wednesday. We'll be traveling tomorrow. It's 6 hours. It's well over a 6-hour drive. And we'd have to leave by 11 in the morning. And I already know that Marisa's got some errands. She's got to go see somebody after noon. So we probably aren't even going to get into Vegas until late at night, tomorrow night. So we'll do a show on Friday. And then I'll see if Marisa's willing to do a show on Saturday, seeing as we missed Thursday. I really want to get her in as much as possible because my stay is very short out here on the West Coast. So, and it's so enjoying. If you haven't been able to catch any of the last few shows, starting with Sunday, so we had Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and those shows were great because Marisa had channeling at the end, and if you missed that channeling, you really need to go back to these last few shows and listen to what Marisa had to say, because she was channeling. Yesterday, she was primarily channeling Peter, but Jesus was there, and but the previous two, she was channeling Christ himself. So really wanted you to go back. The story is great. Again, what we're doing, there's with Marisa and I'm the Christian, I'm the father, I'm the Christian guy. We tried to bring them up in somewhat of an upbringing to introduce the church to them. But as to my son and my daughter, Marisa, and to Joshua, it really didn't stick. Marisa started going to like a Young Life thing when she was in school. But I think that was more just to get out of the house on a Wednesday night and go party and legally. So she's not a real religious person. Marisa is just not a religious person, but she is very spiritual because she has the gift of clairvoyance. And that gift, she uses it strictly in the spiritual sense. Strictly in the spiritual sense. She's not out there to tell you if you're going to find a new wife or a new husband or whether you're going to win the lottery or whatever. She does not do any prophecy. She's not allowed to do any prophecy. But she does channel those universe personalities and gives us a lot of insight on really where our lives should be right now in this world. This world, as crazy as the world is right now, the world is always crazy. I mean, just think about it. The world is always crazy. I mean, in the 20th century, we had 2 world wars. And then in my generation, we fought in a war in Vietnam. And just a little bit older than me, they fought in Korea. And then in the 1990s, we had Desert Storm. So it's just wars all the time. It's just wars all the time. And here we are potentially facing, a nuclear disaster now. The one thing I'm kind of happy about, though, is I've been giving some admonitions to store up some food, store up some money, put it aside, coins preferably, a lot of coins. Get silver if you can, but definitely stock up on food and things like that. Because I swore, I was under the impression that the powers that be were not going to let November 8th happen in any way, form, or fashion. But we're getting real close to that date right now, and the sky is still blue and the sun's still coming up, and we don't seem to be having a lot of problems. We thought we'd have a lot of problems with supply chains and everything because of the lack of diesel fuel, but primarily diesel oil. But apparently that doesn't seem to be in the news anymore. So it's possible that that potential headache may not occur. The who is it? The railroad workers were under strike, and I think they've worked that all out as well. So the world's in okay shape right now, leading on up to November 8th. But even if you have put some stuff away, put some money away, put some food away, etc., that's okay. It's always going to be there for you. We pray that nothing weird's going to happen in this world, but at least if you've prepared yourself, you still have a lot of food and you still have your money. So anyway, life's looking relatively good. So Joe Morris, Answers Heaven Speaks. What we're doing is an ongoing story of Jesus Christ and his life. And we've started right from the birth. We've gone through his early childhood. We've gone through his teens. We've gone through the 20s. We led up to the meeting of the apostles and what he did in his life. He then met his apostles and spent, a year and a half or more, just training them, and then doing little sessions, going out and doing little ministry sessions. But, Jesus did end up healing a lot of people when he was up there in the Sea of Galilee. And he ended up feeding 5,000 people at one time, but it actually is more than 5,000 because that was just 5,000 men. And then there were women and children there as well. And then he did it a second time. And only in the book of Matthew does it mention that second time, when in this time there was 4,000. There was a time that he had done some preaching on a Sabbath day. And when the sun went down, over almost 700 people showed up outside his house, and he healed them all. And so he had a great following. He had a great following, but it was really pissing off the Jews. And they went to Herod and asked Herod to arrest him. They wanted to arrest him, get him sort of like John the Baptist, get him out of the way, put him in jail, whatever. And, they ended up chopping John the Baptist's head off. But all those people that witnessed all that healing and everything then rose up and wanted to be like an army and say, okay, you're our king now, and we're going to go and we're going to fight, and we're going to take over everything. We're going to knock out the heads of the Jews, and we're going to knock out the Romans. And Jesus said, no, I am not of this world. This is not my world. I am not the king. I am not the Messiah that you think the Messiah is supposed to be in this life. And it really disappointed a lot of people, to the point where he lost almost all of his followers. So now, though, he did have an evangelistic corps that had come in from all over the Roman Empire and had settled in to a camp up in Capernaum with David Zebedee. It might have been in Bethsaida. I don't know. Those towns are pretty close to each other. And so there were about 150 evangelists, and they all wanted to go along with Jesus, but he had to whittle it down. He ended up whittling it down in our last story down to 70, and then he gave them their instructions on what they should do when they go out and minister. And they got all excited because Jesus gave them the powers to heal minor sicknesses, even to the point of maybe taking evil spirits out of possessed people. And so they're all excited. They've come back now. They came back to Magadan. They were up in Magadan, which is up there near Capernaum. It's all up there in the Sea of Galilee area. But now they had gone down to Jerusalem. They went back up to Magadan. They're going to now spend a month outside of Jerusalem. And they've gone south from the Sea of Galilee to a place called Pella, P-E-L-L-A. I think of Windows. Isn't there Windows by Pella here in the United States? And but they're still in the, let's call it the county of Perea. And he's safe in Perea. They can't issue any warrants for his arrest or execute warrants of arrest in Perea, because that's run by Philip, who is the brother of Herod, and he's kind of taken to Jesus. So anyway, but now they've headed down to Pella. David Zebedee and his messenger corps have actually set up another tent city for as many as 1,500 pilgrims who are now coming in. They all want to see Jesus. Everybody wants to see the rock star, because word has gotten out. They didn't have cell phones in those days, so it was all word of mouth, word of mouth, word of mouth. So a lot of people are coming, but now this time and today we're going to find out Jesus kind of splits. You know, he leaves the 70 to deal with all the pilgrims, and for some reason he needs to head back down to Jerusalem, and he's going to take, I believe it's Thomas and Nathaniel with him, two of the apostles, and they're like freaked out. They don't want him to go, because if he goes into Jerusalem, they can arrest him. And they got very close to arresting him when he was telling the Pharisees that they were children of the devil when he was there during the Feast of the Tabernacles. But anyway, now they got another feast. There's another feast. The Jews must have lots of feasts and holidays. So only about a month has gone by. That was in, I think, late October, early November of AD 29. They have now gotten up to the end of AD 29, the end of December, and moving on into January of AD 30. And he's going to head on out to Jerusalem again, much to the chagrin of everybody. Everybody's afraid he's going to get busted for sure. And they're worried because Jesus had told them, you know, this isn't his world, and that day will come when he will leave. They just don't know when, but he's making it pretty clear it's going to be pretty soon. So we're leading up to that. You know, we've got a lot of stories still to tell. What I'm covering is a lot of backstory, because the Bible doesn't cover this. The Bible didn't say anything about his trips up to Magadan or down to Pella, or of the big camps set up by David Zebedee or whatever. It could have. There was enough written about that time, but it wasn't put into the Bible, the New Testament, that, what's his name? Constantine, 300 years later, took all these writings from the time of Jesus and had about 222 different so-called books to choose from, and he only ended up doing, was it 27? I think there's 27 books in the New Testament and 39 in the Old Testament, so that adds up to 66. There's 66 books in the entire Bible. So anyway, but like John says in his epistle in Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, the fourth book in the New Testament, John says, if everything that had happened during this time of Jesus were put into a book, the libraries wouldn't be big enough for everything. So what we're doing is giving you a little bit of a backstory, telling you kind of what's going on between all the things that end up being in the New Testament, like his parables and his miracles. But it's all those travels and the dealing with his apostles and his disciples and everything that we just don't get. We just don't get it out of Scripture. We do not get it out of the book, the Bible. So that's what we're doing. We're telling a story. We're continuing the story. And it will eventually lead up to the crucifixion, but even that's not the end, because he comes back for 40 days. So we've still got a lot of the story to do, and I hope you're going to stick with it. I'm very pleased. I'm humbly pleased that there are so many people following this now, and I really appreciate it. And I think Christ really appreciates it as well. And what Marisa is telling me is that Christ comes in, he's here. He's here. When I'm doing this, he's here. If I get into something that might not be right, blink, my Wi-Fi may go off. I mean, they have the ability to just shut it down. But so far, things have been working pretty good. And what Marisa said after channeling him last night before, and the night before that, is that yes, his presence is here right now as we're telling the story, which means that stays with this. So when you watch this, when you listen to this, Christ is right there with you. He's right there with you. His Spirit is there with you. And you say, well, how can he be with me? Because I know Johnny down the street, he's watching it too. How can he be with him? Well, Jesus said, I can be everywhere at once and nowhere at once. And I thought, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? He can be everywhere. So he's sort of like a hologram. He can be his hologram. His consciousness can be with you and your friends and your family and your neighbors and everybody else all at the same time. But he is with you when you follow this story. I mean, I think that's really amazing, to be honest with you. And we got a lot of other personalities here. When Marisa comes in, they all come in. They all come in. You know, the apostle come in. Even Herod was in here yesterday. We didn't talk to him. But he may pop in again. But probably not today because Marissa's out doing her thing. And the chances of her getting back by the time I get done with my hour might be pretty slim, pretty slim. But if she does, and if she has anything to say, we'll pop her in at the end, and then I'll change my my salutation, and I'll let you guys know whether Marisa gets in here and does her thing. So, anyway, let's get back into it. Again, don't want to talk about the world. A lot of problems in the world right now. A lot of people having problems, physical problems, because of some things that power mad people did, and we just can't go there. We're not going to go there. But that might be something I could talk about. If you ever wanted to write to me, I could maybe answer you and tell you something from the secular world and how it ties in. But we were fortunate the other day because we were able to allow our podcast to go out and get boosted out pretty wide the other day, because the Luciferian rebellion right now is going after the children, going after the children. And if you haven't noticed it, look around you, look around the world. It seems like the children attacking the children. Why are they attacking the children? Well, I've said it before and I'm going to say it again. The earth shifted on 11/11/11. So on November 11th, 2011, the earth shifted, very silently shifted. And it started moving up out of the third dimension towards the fifth dimension. Now, yeah, we're still third dimension. You know, I can slap my arm. I'm here, third dimension. It just means that the energy of the earth is switching from a dualistic, evil-oriented world to more of a spiritual world. So everybody that was born, every child that was born after November 11th, 2011, are very special. Very, very, very special. Kids, all you parents that have kids from 11 on down. And that includes even today, every day. We're having basically fifth dimensional children born. These kids are going to be geniuses. I mean, they're going to be geniuses. They're going to be patient and loving. It's amazing. Now, you may have a little snotty kid, but you know what? Things can change over time. And again, Lucifer gets to throw in 1/12 of all the new souls coming in. 1/12 of them are Lucifer's souls. So there's still some bad people in there, some bad kids in there that are going to grow up bad. But we've talked about that. They can transition. They can transition out of that. And Marisa talks about their chakras. And those who are living in their lower chakras are living in basically negativity. And when they learn to lift themselves up, especially up here where the Holy Spirit resides in you, that's when people are fabulous. They're amazing, just absolutely amazing. So right now, for whatever reason, we know the reason, they're going after the kids. They got to attack the kids. And it's just amazing. It seems like it just came on all at once, doesn't it? It's just very recent that it's come on. But it's all a plan. It's all a big plan up there to corrupt the children. And we just can't let that happen. We can't let that happen. So be diligent, parents. Hang in there and protect your children. especially those that are 11 and under. And those that are a little bit older are fine because they were in the lead up to the switch. So I would say kids that are probably, maybe 15 and down are kids of promise, of real promise. But definitely the ones that are that were born after November 11th, 2011. So anyway, let's get into the story of Jesus. And like I say, they've gone down and camped now in a place called Pella, which is about halfway between the Sea of Galilee and Jerusalem. And normally it takes like 4 days to walk from there because it's about 80 to 90 miles. And they walk generally around 20 miles a day. And so I think they're still about 40 miles away from Jerusalem. So you'll see that Jesus leaves the camp and he takes off with Nathaniel and I believe it's Thomas. We'll see real soon. And they're freaking out. I mean, they're just freaking out. They're going, wow, what do you want to go to Jerusalem for? No, don't go there. Don't go there. Please, you're going to get arrested. But they have another feast, and Jesus is going to do what Jesus does. That's all there is to it. I'm sorry, it's Yeshua ben Joseph. Jesus is the anglicized name for him. He never went by the name Jesus, ever. It was always Yeshua or maybe Joshua. He was known as the Master. By many people, before he started his ministry, he was known as the boat builder or the yoke maker, the tanner, because he had done so many different jobs. And again, he was a capitalist. He ran two caravans all the way up to Rome, and buying and selling. He used to own his own shop, and he used to make certain things. We call them yokes. Yokes are things that go on cattle so you can farm or something, but it also applies to other works of handiwork with wood. So he had his own wood shop, and obviously he had to make money, and he made money to maintain his family because his father had died when he was 14. And he couldn't go off to all the colleges and all the schools in Jerusalem like all the Jews normally do, because he had a bunch of brothers and sisters he had to take care of, and he became the father. So he learned to become, as a human, a father. He was a father to his brothers and sisters, and a mate, so to speak, to his mother Mary. So he lived the life of being a father and all those responsibilities. And but now he's told those that want to travel with him, they need to get rid of everything they've got because they can't have any distractions. In fact, when they go out, they're not even supposed to take food or extra clothing with them. They need to go out and do their ministering and hope that people are going to, so that they're not homeless, sleeping out in the street, people will invite them in. So he tells them, go into the first house that somebody invites you into, and don't yearn for the big palace house that's across the street. Once you're in that smaller home or not so lavish place, it doesn't matter. They're going to feed you, and you're going to have a roof over your head when you sleep. So that's been his admonition to them. And they're going to be working for about the next month in all the little towns between Pella and up to Magadan, they're not going up into Phoenicia. He's already done his thing there. But he's going to be around the Sea of Galilee all the way down, almost down to the Dead Sea. And they're going to be, the 70 are broken up in 2 by 2. So there's 35 couples that go out and preaching and teaching and healing. And so he's about ready to take off for Jerusalem again. So let's see how the story goes. And this starts our paper in the Urantia book, paper number 164. And it's entitled At the Feast of Dedication. So as the camp at Pella was being established, Jesus, taking with him Nathaniel and Thomas, secretly went up to Jerusalem to attend the Feast of the Dedication. And not until they passed over the Jordan at the Bethany ford did the two apostles become aware that their master really was going on to Jerusalem. And when they perceived that he really intended to be present at the Feast of Dedication, they remonstrated. That's like opposite of demonstrating. They remonstrated, saying, no, remonstrated with him most earnestly, And using every sort of argument, they sought to dissuade him from going to Jerusalem. But their efforts were of no avail because Jesus was determined to visit Jerusalem. Now, to all their entreaties, that's their begging and pleadings, to all their beggings and their pleadings, and to all their warnings emphasizing the folly and the danger of placing himself in the hands of the Sanhedrin, yes, the Sanhedrin, they want to bust him, he would reply only, quoting, I would give these teachers in Israel another opportunity to see the light before my hour comes. Now, you know that didn't set well with Nathaniel and Thomas. Again, he said, I would give these teachers. He's going back down there to confront those. He's already told his evangelists, his ministry, don't go to the heads of the Jewish, don't go to the chief priests, and don't go to the Pharisees or the Sanhedrin. Stay away from them. And what's he doing? He's going to go back and he's going to face them himself right there in Jerusalem. This is going to be very interesting. So he says, I would give these teachers in Israel another opportunity to see the light before my hour comes. Remember, his last trip into Jerusalem was just recently, and he was just slamming those guys. I mean, he was just telling them they're the children of the devil. They had no light within them. They were clean on the outside and they were dirty on the inside. And that they were following a bunch of rules that were just archaic. And all he had was two rules. Love your father with all your heart and soul and love your neighbor as yourself. Now that's the tough one. And we're going to get into that today because he's going to talk about the parable of the Samaritan. I mean, the Jews hated the Samaritans so much they wouldn't even mention the word. They didn't even want to say the word. They just would say those people. So on they went toward Jerusalem, the two apostles continuing to express their feelings of fear and to voice their doubts about the wisdom of such an apparently presumptuous undertaking. So they ended up reaching Jericho about 4:30 in the afternoon and decided to prepare to lodge for the night there. I think, again, it's about 20 miles plus 4 more hours, something like that. So they probably decided to go about halfway or maybe 3/4 of the way to Jerusalem. Now they're going to stay in the town of Jericho. So here's the story of the Good Samaritan. You know what? I am going to do something I said I'm not going to do because we got right up to it on Sunday. And I first want to do is I want to give you Luke's account from the Bible of the parable of the Good Samaritan. And let's see how it balances out with the story from the Urantia book. So this is from Luke, I'm not sure which, Luke 10, chapter 10 of Luke, starting with verse 25. And it says, on one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. We're going to find out that was an attorney. Teacher, he asked, what must I do to inherit eternal life? What is written in the law? Jesus replied. And he said, how do you read it? And the man answered, love the Lord with God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. So he knew what Jesus' teachings were. And Jesus said, you have answered correctly. And Jesus replied, do this and you will live. But this guy's sneaky. He says, but he wanted to justify himself. So he asked Jesus another question. He says, and who is my neighbor? And in reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. And they stripped him of his clothes and beat him and went away, leaving him half dead. And a priest happened to be going down the same road. And when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. A priest passed by on the other side. He saw the problems that this man was having, but the priest walked over and went across the street because it was a Samaritan. So too, a Levite. Now a Levite, that's a major priest in the Jewish faith. I mean, the Levites were the ones assigned by God to become the ministers of the Jewish faith. So it was anybody who was a Levite was very, very proud. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side as well. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was. And when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and he bandaged his wounds and pouring on oil and wine. And then he put the man on his own donkey and brought him to an inn and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. And he said, "Look after him. And when I return, I will reimburse you for any other extra expense you may have." Jesus says, "Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers?" And the expert in the law, the attorney, replied, "The one who had mercy on him." And Jesus told him, "Go and do likewise." And that's the extent of the parable of the Samaritan, the Good Samaritan. That's where the phrase Good Samaritan comes from, was this passage in Luke. And the next part of Luke talks about at the home of Martha and Mary, and we covered that already. So let's get back to our paper 164. And this is, again, the story of the Good Samaritan. Let's see how it plays out. It's kind of a condensed version right there. And they don't even go into talking about, you'll see. So that evening, a considerable company gathered about Jesus and the 2 apostles to ask questions, many of which the apostles answered, while others the master discussed. And in the course of the evening, a certain lawyer seeking to entangle Jesus in a compromising disputation said, "Teacher, I would like to ask you just what I should do to inherit eternal life." And Jesus answered, "What is written in the law and the prophets? How do you read the scriptures?" And the lawyer, knowing the teachings of both Jesus and the Pharisees, answered, "To love the Lord God with all your heart and soul and mind and strength, and your neighbor as yourself." And then said Jesus, "You have answered correctly. This, if you really do, will lead to life everlasting." But, the big but, the lawyer was not wholly sincere in asking this question, and desiring to justify himself while also hoping to embarrass Jesus, he ventured to ask still another question. Now, drawing a little closer to the master, he said, "But, teacher, I should like you to tell me just who is my neighbor." And we've discussed that a lot. Who's our neighbor? And are we really supposed to love our neighbor? I mean, seriously? So the lawyer asked this question, hoping to entrap Jesus into making some statement that would contravene the Jewish law, which defined one's neighbor as, this is what the Jewish law says, a neighbor is the children of one's people. Basically saying that the only neighbors are just Jews. That's it. The children of one's people. The Jews looked upon all others as Gentile dogs. And this lawyer was somewhat familiar with Jesus' teaching and therefore well knew that the master thought differently. Thus, he hoped to lead him into saying something which could be construed as an attack upon the sacred law. But Jesus discerned the lawyer's motive. Jesus, keep in mind, and we've talked about this before, how much of our brain do we use? I don't know exactly what it is. It's 6%, 8%, 9%, 7%, something like that. Geniuses among us use like 11 or 12% of their brain. And they're up there with scores close to 200 in IQ scores. The average person's around 100. So people who have 2-3% greater brain capacity or ability are considered geniuses among us. Yet we know that Jesus had 100%, because he was the creator of our universe. His brain was 100%. So he could see things, He could hear things. He could think people's thoughts. He would know what people were thinking. So anyway, but Jesus discerned the lawyer's motive. And instead of falling into the trap, he proceeded to tell his hearers a story which would be fully appreciated by any Jericho audience. And here's what Jesus said. And this is where we got into Luke's account. But there wasn't a preface in the Luke's account. We've just gotten a preface. A certain man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell into the hands of cruel brigands who robbed him, stripped him, and beat him, and departing left him half dead. Reminds me of our world today. Big cities in the United States, it just, God. Very soon, by chance, a certain priest was going down that way, and when he came upon the wounded man, seeing his sorry plight, he just passed on by to the other side of the road. And in like manner, a Levite also, when he came along and saw the man, passed by on the other side as well. But now, about this time, a certain Samaritan, Jews hated the Samaritans. They were half Jew and half Gentile. And so they felt like they were just polluted people, just polluted. So about this time, a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed down to Jericho, came across this wounded man. And when he saw how he had been robbed and beaten and bloodied, he was moved with compassion. And going over to him, he bound up his wounds and poured on oil and wine, and setting the man upon his own beast, brought him here, put him up on his donkey, and brought him here to the inn and took care of him. And on the morrow, he took out some money and, giving it to the host, said, and this is Jesus speaking, and the Samaritan tells the host, "Take good care of my friend, and if the expense is more, when I come back again, I will repay you." Jesus says, "Now, let me ask you, which of these three turned out to be the neighbor of him who fell among the robbers?" And when the lawyer perceived that he had fallen into his own snare, he answered, "Well, he who showed mercy on him." And Jesus said, "Go and do likewise." And then the lawyer answered, "He who showed mercy," that he might refrain from even speaking that odious word, Samaritan. The lawyer was forced to give the very answer to the question, "Who is my neighbor?" which Jesus wished given, and which, if Jesus had so stated, would have directly involved him in the charge of heresy. Jesus not only confounded the dishonest lawyer, but he told his hearers a story which was at the same time a beautiful admonition to all his followers and a stunning rebuke to all Jews regarding their attitude toward the Samaritans. And this story has continued to promote brotherly love among all who have subsequently believed the gospel of Jesus. See, we got a bigger story. We get more of a complete story rather than just the parable, leaving it up to us to kind of figure out exactly what it is, what it meant. So now we're done with that parable of the Samaritan. Now he's heading on into Jerusalem. How are we doing on time? We're doing good. So at Jerusalem, Jesus had attended the Feast of Tabernacles, which we all went over, that he might proclaim the gospel to the pilgrims from all parts of the empire. Again, the Feast of Tabernacles would bring in people from everywhere, all the way from India and all the way up there in the Roman Empire. And pilgrims come in for a party. It was a big party. The Feast of the, what was it called? The Feast of the Tabernacles again. This one's the Feast of, what's it called again? The Feast of, we'll get to it. My brain just doesn't retain anything. So Jesus had attended the Feast of Tabernacles that he might proclaim the gospel to the pilgrims from all parts of the empire. He now went up to the Feast of the Dedication. I couldn't even remember that. There's so many feasts. Feast of the Dedication for just one purpose: to give the Sanhedrin and the Jewish leaders another chance to see the light. The principal event of these few days in Jerusalem occurred on a Friday night at the home of Nicodemus. Nicodemus. And here were gathered together some 25 Jewish leaders who believed Jesus' teaching. So he's in good company. One time Nicodemus wanted to go with Jesus, but he was just too big of a priest. I mean, he was lauded upon. People were bowing down to him all the time, to Nicodemus. And Jesus says, you can come with me, but give up everything you've got. And he couldn't give up his robes. He couldn't give up his big stature within the Jewish community. But now he's meeting with him again. And he's meeting with Nicodemus and a bunch of others, about 25 others who also believed in Jesus' teaching. So among this group were 14 men who were then, or had recently been, members of the Sanhedrin. And this meeting was attended by Eber. Remember Eber? Eber was sort of the spy from the Sanhedrin even before the Feast of Tabernacles, that had gone up and spied on Jesus when he was up there before he went to Phoenicia. But he, instead of finding a way to get him arrested, even though he was up there in Perea where he wasn't allowed to be arrested, Eber ended up liking what Jesus had to say. So here this kind of head of the Sanhedrin, or a big man in the Sanhedrin, had fallen into the philosophy and teachings of Jesus. So now here he is. Eber's at Nicodemus's house along with Matadormus. Now, if you remember our story yesterday, Jesus had to turn down a very influential young man who was very, very rich. And he just couldn't give up his riches to go with Jesus. And as Jesus said, if he would have given them up, he would have gotten them back tenfold. But he just wanted to hang on to what he had. But he truly, truly, truly loved Jesus. So he's there with Eber, and it's Matadormus, the young man, and also Joseph of Arimathea. Now we find out who Joseph of Arimathea is later, because when Jesus is put into a tomb, it's the tomb given to the apostles and to Jesus by Joseph of Arimathea. So on this occasion, Jesus' hearers were all learned men, and both they and his two apostles were amazed at the breadth and depth of the remarks which the master made to this distinguished group. And not since the times when he had taught in Alexandria, Rome, and in the islands of the Mediterranean had he exhibited such learning and shown such a grasp of the affairs of men, both secular and religious. Again, he did not go to Alexandria with his apostles or his disciples. He did not go to Rome with them. This was before. Remember, he was on those caravans, and he was going out to Egypt and then up to Rome. And he got to meet a lot of people. And as I told you, he stopped in a lot of places, and he was known as the boat builder or the tanner or the carpenter or whatever, but they didn't know him as Yeshua ben Joseph. And he would minister this profound lessons that people just found so much easier to accept over and above the scriptures of the Jews. So he had been in Alexandria and Rome, and so it says when he had taught in Alexandria, Rome, and in the islands of the Mediterranean. What's the name of those? Where are those islands? They're like, now they're homes for the rich and famous. And I can't think of the names of them. Anyway, a lot of rich people like to vacation on those islands out in the Mediterranean. Plus, there's a whole lot of islands up there by Greece as well. And he did go to Greece. He went to Greece. So the islands of the Mediterranean had he exhibited such learning and shown such a grasp of the affairs of men, both secular and religious. And when this little meeting broke up, all went away mystified by the master's personality and charmed by his gracious manner and in love with the man. I mean, these big-time Jews were falling in love with the man, Jesus. They had sought to advise Jesus concerning his desire to win the remaining members of the Sanhedrin, though. The master listened attentively. Jesus listened attentively, but silently. Isn't that a good lesson? Listen, listen. Don't always have to have the word. When you're in a group, listen, listen. You don't always have to be the one speaking. So the master listened attentively, but silently, to all their proposals. And he well knew none of their plans would work. He surmised that the majority of the Jewish leaders never would accept the gospel of the kingdom. Nevertheless, he gave them all this one more chance to choose. But when he went forth that night with Nathaniel and Thomas to lodge on the Mount of Olives, that is where the transfiguration took place. Remember, the last time he was on the Mount of Olives, but at that time he had James, John, and Peter with him. Now he's got Thomas and Nathaniel with him, and they're going to go up and lodge on the Mount of Olives. He had not yet decided upon the method he would pursue in bringing his work once more to the notice of the Sanhedrin. So that night, Nathaniel and Thomas slept little. They were just too much amazed by what they had heard at Nicodemus's house. They thought much over the final remark of Jesus regarding the offer of the former and present members of the Sanhedrin to go with him before the 70. The master said, "No, my brethren, it would be to no purpose. You would multiply the wrath to be visited upon your own heads, but you would not in the least mitigate the hatred which they bear me." Jesus goes on, he says, "Go, each of you, about the Father's business as the Spirit leads you, while I once more bring the kingdom to their notice in the manner which my Father may direct." Now we're going to get into the healing of the blind beggar. Doggone it, that's something that we're going to have to get into on Sunday. Going to have a lot of biblical passages, strictly Bible on Sundays, just the Bible. No your Rancher book and nothing of mine and Marisa's books from Marisa's channelings. But here's a story of healing the blind beggar. The next morning, and I think that's in Luke. I think it came right after, I'm pretty sure it came right after the meeting with Martha and Mary. Luke bounces around. You have to remember, they put their books together, after Jesus had been gone for many years. And so they kind of mixed it up. No, the Martha and Mary thing was at the end of Luke 10. So probably goes into Luke 11. I wonder if I can get it. No, I'm going to save that. I'm going to save that for Sunday. We'll get into the healing of the blind beggar on Sunday. So the next morning, the three went over to Martha's home at Bethany for breakfast, and then went immediately into Jerusalem. Again, Bethany's kind of like an outskirts, sort of like a suburb of Jerusalem. So they went over to Martha's home at Bethany for breakfast, and then went immediately into Jerusalem. And this Sabbath morning, as Jesus and his 2 apostles drew near the temple, they encountered a well-known beggar, a man who had been born blind, sitting at his usual place. Although these mendicants did not solicit or receive alms on the Sabbath, they were permitted thus to sit in their usual places. Jesus paused and looked upon the beggar. And as he gazed upon this man who had been born blind, the idea came into his mind as to how he would once more bring his mission on earth to the notice of the Sanhedrin and the other Jewish leaders and religious teachers and Pharisees. So as the master stood there before the blind man, engrossed in deep thought, Nathaniel, pondering the possible cause of this man's blindness, asked, "Master, who did the sin? Who did the sin? This man or his parents, that he should be born blind? Whose sin caused him to be blind? Is it the man himself? Or was it the parents that caused this?" And it says, the rabbis taught that all such cases of blindness from birth were caused by sin. Not only were children conceived and born in sin, but a child could be born blind as a punishment for some specific sin committed by his father. That was the belief of the Jewish hierarchy and the Jewish thought of that day. They even taught that a child itself might sin before it was even born into the world. While it's in the womb, a child can sin. They also taught that such defects could be caused by some sin or other indulgence of the mother while carrying the child. There was, throughout all these regions, a lingering belief in reincarnation. Now, we believe in reincarnation to a certain extent. Our personality and consciousness move on. If we get eternal life, we move on. We go to heaven. And we can hang around for about 70 years and we can come back. We can come back not as Joe Morris or as Jane Smith or whatever, but your personality and your consciousness come back in now a new human being with different circumstances that you live today. So it's the soul's choice. It's the soul's choice as to whether you continue on, and your choice. You have a certain amount of free will even after you die. You have a certain amount of free will that you can discuss with your soul members, your soul family, with Christ, with the Father, with the Holy Spirit, with your ascended master, with your oversoul, with all your team. All your team. You can decide, like my mom's hanging around. She wants to come back. She wants to come back after the 70 years and try to fix things, because she found out after she passed away that she was supposed to come down here on earth to learn how to love herself. And she never learned how to love herself. But she didn't know that because we all have amnesia. We don't remember sitting in heaven before we came down here as Jane Doe or Joe Morris. So my mom's going to come back. But my dad, he's gone off. He's gone off to other worlds, other dimensions. And he's off to school. He's progressing. But my mom, she feels like there's still things that she should have done. She'd like to do them over again. And usually it takes about 70 years, 70, before you get to come back. Now, there are some circumstances where people, their consciousness can come back sooner. But it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare. And I'm not going to go into the rare occasions when they did. That might be something that Marisa could probably talk about. So anyway, they had a lingering belief in reincarnation. And the older Jewish teachers, together with Plato, Philo, and many of the Essenes, tolerated the theory that men may reap in one incarnation what they have sown in a previous existence. Thus, in one life, they were believed to be expiating the sins committed in preceding lives. This is what the Jews believed. The master found it difficult to make men believe that their souls had not had previous existences. I don't know about that. See, now this is where I run into a little conflict with your Rancha book, because we've been told that souls create themselves, expand themselves to have separate personalities and consciousnesses, and I'm a piece of my soul. But my soul has other pieces out there in the world all around the place as well. And each existence helps that soul to grow. But here now Jesus is telling him, no. The soul didn't have previous existences. Yet we've also found out that Jesus admitted, so I don't know if the Midwayers got it right on this one, because Jesus even admitted that the spirit, the soul of John the Baptist was Elijah. So that contradicts this right then. So we'll have to see. I wish Marisa was here to see what she had to say about it. But we may have to ask her again on the next time she's here. However, inconsistent as it seems, while such blindness was supposed to be the result of sin, the Jews held that it was meritorious in a high degree to give alms, give help to these blind beggars. It was the custom of these blind men constantly to chant to the passers-by. Oh, tender-hearted gained merit by assisting the blind, is what they would say. So Jesus entered into the discussion of this case with Nathaniel and Thomas, not only because he had already decided to use this blind man as the means of that day, don't forget, it's on the Sabbath day, on that day bringing his mission once more prominently to the notice of the Jewish leaders, but also because he always encouraged his apostles to seek for the true causes, of all the phenomena, natural or spiritual. He had often warned them to avoid the common tendency to assign spiritual causes to commonplace physical events. And Jesus decided to use this beggar in his plans for that day's work. But before doing anything for the blind man, Josiah by name, he proceeded to answer Nathanael's question. But said the master, neither did this man sin nor his parents, that the works of God might be manifest in him. This blindness has come upon him in the natural course of events. But we go away. Okay, let me reread that because you may not have heard me. When my phone rings, it tends to knock me out. This blindness has come upon him in the natural course of events, but we must now do the works of him, the Father, who sent me, while it is still day. For the night will certainly come when it will be impossible to do the work we are about to perform. And when I am in the world, I am the light of the world. But in only a little while I will not be with you. And whoa, Marisa came back. But you haven't listened to the story, so you probably won't be able to say. I don't know. I'm going to leave it up to you because I got to a point here. I wouldn't mind asking Jesus if possible.
Okay, the guys are with me. I'm just
Are they all with you right now?
Well, they're here. As soon as I pulled up, I heard them.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to that and read that, and we'll see what Marisa says. So let's see how long it's going to take to get through the blind man's story here. Yeah, I think I'll start this on our next time. We'll go in and we'll finish the story of the blind man. But let me just read this part to you, Marisa, if you can come in. And
blind man?
Yeah, he's going to heal a blind man on a Sabbath day in front of all the big wigs.
I just wonder if that's a metaphor or if it's real.
Oh, it's real. I mean, it's in the Bible. I read the Bible account of when he was of the Good Samaritan. But let me just read this one part, and then I guess that's my question to Jesus, because it's different from our own channeling.
Yeah.
About reincarnation. You've done a whole book on reincarnation.
I don't believe in reincarnation anymore, but...
Well, I believe in the reincarnation, that our souls send us back, our consciousness and our personalities, but back into different people. I mean, I'll never come back as Joe Moris, but my soul's, my personality and my consciousness could come back if I choose to learn lessons that I didn't listen or learn on this trip. So anyway, let me just read this one part, and I'm going to turn it over to you because I've hit the hour anyway.
Okay.
And I'll get into the blind man being, and we probably aren't going to have a show tomorrow because we're traveling.
We can do it while we're driving.
We'll see.
We're going to just be sitting there.
Okay, let's see.
I mean, you'll just be sitting there and then I'll be driving, or vice versa.
Oh, I got to get to this part. Okay, here it says, the older Jewish teachers, together with Plato, Philo, Aristotle, Socrates, etc., all the philosophers, the older Jewish teachers, together with philosophers and many of the Essenes,
Socrates is here,
tolerated the theory that men may reap in one incarnation what they have sown in a previous existence. Thus, in one life, they were believed to be expiating the sins committed in preceding lives. That's like I said, my mom. My mom wants to come back and learn how to love herself because she didn't learn it on this trip. But now they're talking about getting rid of the sins that they did in a previous life and fix them in the next life. And that's what the Jews and the philosophers believed. But the Master, Jesus, found it difficult to make men believe that their souls had not had previous existences. And that's where I went, oh, that's different.
Jesus taught reincarnation.
Yeah, he's saying that the souls had not had previous existences. And I'm saying, okay, midwayers, I don't know about you on this one. I don't know if what you're telling us is absolute. And so I want to ask Jesus, have our souls ever lived? I think in all of our teachings we have. I mean, Jesus has said, I used to be a friend of his, where we used to sit up on a rock and look at the stars and talk about the universe.
Well, what he's saying
If that's the case, then
we're multidimensional beings. So he says it depends on how we look at it.
Well, here, do it. Do it here.
Let me wash my hands off real quick and make all of my hands.
Do it here. So anyway, okay, Joe Morris. Let me see if let me say hi to a few people that popped in today. Rachel, good to see you. Julia, Ramona, Tina, Marisa, Julia, Lisa. Oh, thanks all you people for coming in here. A bunch of you. Carmen for coming in as well. Marissa's got a Patreon class tonight. Probably.
It's not Patreon. It's just a class, and then Patreons get to come for free.
Well, she's got a class that's going to start in about an hour. I think the best way to do that, I think you can get coupons or something by going to discoverintuition.com if you want to get into that with Marissa. But
and if they can't afford it, get a hold of assistant at discoverintuition.com. That's Ann.
You can tell her. You can tell her. You ready to sit in here?
Now let me just fill this real quick. I'm so thirsty.
Okay. Let me drink up a little bit.
That Jesus says it's a long description of what you're asking. He says it's like a book long, but he'll try and sum it up.
Yeah, it'd be good if you could sum it up. Jesus, if you could sum it up, I appreciate it. Because it says right here, the master found it difficult to make men believe that their souls had not had previous existences. Well, again, I think that's one thing I'm countering. So but let's see what Jesus says.
Jesus found it hard.
Be careful, you got
to convince him that
here, go ahead and sit down.
They had not had previous existences.
You can read it right there on the screen. It says that one thing.
The master found it hard. Hi guys. Master. Nope, I got it over my legs. There we go. I'm flashing the world. The master found it difficult to make men believe that their souls had not had previous existences. He got the pen because he wants me to draw. And he's not turn this way because my crown fell off. My mouth.
Oh no.
So Jesus is consciousness. Okay. Jesus is consciousness. Souls are essences. Spirit lives once.
It's backwards, of course, but they have to read backwards.
Oh, so they're saying spirit lives once, souls are essences, Jesus is consciousness. And then they're saying Jesus, the consciousness has 12 layers. The essence has, I wanted to say 7, but it's 8 layers. And the spirit lives once has 7 layers. So, what he's saying is, when you are a human being, you embody all of these layers of everything. But some people will disconnect from their soul's essence. That doesn't mean that they're not still consciousness, meaning they're not like the consciousness would be they're calling it like the solar plexus of God, the creation of God. So God creates a duplicate of itself and sends itself down, and that would be Jesus, the Christ consciousness, I guess. The Christ consciousness is only in layers 7 to 12. Below that, it's all anti-Christ consciousness. And you move up and down throughout your life. And that consciousness doesn't have lives because it just continues to live. It'll jump around from person to person, from life to life, from soul to soul. The consciousness can move and go into different places and different times and different spaces. And that would be kind of like the thing you would consider as that reincarnates. Like Grandma Betty's consciousness needs to learn to love itself. So Grandma Betty is not living again, but her consciousness is.
Right.
Yeah. So, but not the soul. The souls are an essence, and the souls don't die and live and die and live. They get disconnected from. And then, like, you may connect in with the essence of your soul, and now you're invigorated and you're awake and you're alive, and that's what people do when they get baptized. They get plugged into the essence of their soul. So when they get plugged into the essence of their soul, they have life in them again. They're living, is what they're saying. Without a soul's essence, we're just an echo of a person. And we can create in our mind the way God creates, but without an essence, the creation can't stick to anything. It's just a mental body creation. It's just like you're just creating, and then it's like gone, poof, gone, poof, gone. The soul's essence is the thing that feels the good feelings of the earth, and also feels here. So it's like a buffer for our emotions and feelings. The spirit has these 7 layers, and the spirit only lives once, and then it dies. And this is the thing that, like when people don't have their spirit, they're like a zombie. They're like dead inside. They have no spirit. Their
spirit would be the spirit of the Father, right?
The spirit is the spirit of the earth. So the earth spits out a spirit when we're born.
Oh.
The soul is more of like the essence from the Father. Yeah, the Father spits out like an essence almost. And then this consciousness is also from the Father. So it's like the Father's heart and the Father's mind are these two. And then this would be more like the mother. It gives life. It gives life. It gives this is all we are before age 7. We're just a spirit. We're just spirit. And we don't really have this soul essence.
I guess it's the word dies. It just wouldn't seem to me that anything dies.
Yeah. Well, everything just changes form. But the spirit is more like electricity that comes from the earth. And this is what the dark side wants. The dark side wants the kids' electricity. The dark side wants people's spirits. So they want to dredge you back into your past to think about before you're age 6 or 7, because then you get access to your spirit again, and then they can draw that energy from it. So it's just pure energy. It's just energy. Spirit is energy, and like life force energy, and that's like spirit, the whole huge spirit. Is that the Holy Spirit? They said the Holy Spirit. It's a piece of the Holy Spirit, but it comes through the earth.
The word dies that just threw me off, and then like. Keep it simple, stupid. K-I-S-S. Keep it simple, stupid. Is there any way to describe this simply?
People who are religious are trying to teach this consciousness how to behave itself. Because this consciousness has fallen down into a reality, into this soul essence that the mother and the father create for us. This little path or this trail or this tool that they give us. They give us a spirit. They give us the path to live on, and then our consciousness goes down, and then that's obviously Christ is in charge of teaching us how to raise our conscious level. So the consciousness is the thing that can get stuck down here inside of like an astral body, and it'll be an earthbound spirit. But the soul, so Master found it difficult to believe that souls had previous existences. The souls don't necessarily have existences. It's more like the soul is the story. The soul is the train track. The consciousness is the person inside the train. And the train is the soul again. Oh, because it's different layers. Okay. So the soul's essence is the track. The train is the soul. And then the consciousness is inside of the train riding it. But what the consciousness does is it jumps out. And it jumps out and it goes, I don't want to ride this train. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this thing. And it gets lost. And so the key is...
soul keeps going down the track.
Yep, soul keeps on going, and the consciousness is left behind.
The consciousness might be able to jump back onto the train again at some other time.
Yeah, on a different soul, because what they're saying is the train, look at it like a stream of energy, or a stream. They said, look at it like a river. So a river has a stream. It has water going down it, and that water looks the same all the time. It looks like it's bumping over the same rocks, making the same splashes, making the same noises. But really, it's different water going, and it'll never be that water again. That water will never, ever, ever be in front of that consciousness again that's sitting there watching the stream go by. But if the consciousness jumps in the stream, it's going to kind of stay with the same water the whole way down. And so it's going to go down, and then the consciousness is going to go, oh, I don't want to be alive anymore. So it's going to jump out of the stream and then watch the stream go down and then jump back in. So it's the same stream, the same body, father of water running down the babbling brook. but the consciousness is just choosing to jump in at different times. So different personalities would be different consciousnesses, but it would also be, so just to make it a little bit more confusing, the different personalities are kind of on that boat that's floating down the river. So the boat there would be kind of like Earth, and we're on Earth, and we're floating down this path, and that's why the spirit's from Earth, because we are born through Earth. We go back to Earth. That's the spirit, but our consciousness goes on and goes.
Are they saying that there's a possibility that my personality, my consciousness, when I move on, I can choose to move away from the soul I have and go into a different soul?
Yes. Well, your consciousness can, yes. I mean, if you choose to identify as your soul, then you're literally you're like, I'm the boat.
Oh.
I'm the boat, and other people's consciousnesses can jump inside of me, but I'm the boat. So some people are the boat. Some people have gotten to the point where they're so look at it like this. There's a big star up at the very top. That star is like us. We are that little tiny light up there, shining down and watching and witnessing and watching it all. So technically we're that eye in the sky up there. We're like the awareness that is God. So if we're God and we're choosing to focus on the consciousness and ascending through different conscious levels, then we're not the boat, we're riding the boat. But then once we're done doing that, then we become like the creator consciousness. We become the boat, and now we're housing all these different consciousnesses that come in, and we're getting to experience life through all of their eyes, because they're all just coming in to ride our boat, to ride our creation, to ride our world. And then we never really become the spirit, because the spirit, I guess we do become the spirit. We become the spirit when we're not alive. Interesting. Because the spirit is Earth, or whatever planet we're choosing to incarnate on. But right now we're in Earth. So we have an Earth spirit. And that's just like a little, it's like a spark. It's like a sparkler. But yeah, the eye in the sky up there, our real selves, the true us that's not incarnated, is up there just watching the whole thing. And it's where we choose. So yes, you have a big Joe up there, and that would be your oversoul. So your oversoul is looking down over all creation, going like, oh, cool, that little train track I created in that train and all the little consciousnesses I created. I'm identifying with consciousness number 51 right now. Number 51 is going to go jump on the boat and ride this ride and live on Earth, and I'm going to experience everything as it right now. But then, when it chooses it's not exciting anymore, then I'm going to focus on this or focus on that. So we're saying the I am, if you're aligned with your I am, then you're aligning with your God, your oversoul, the soul. You're aligning with everything all the way down. So you can pretty much create your own reality when you're aligning with all that, because then they're saying the human being has the ability to embody all the dimensions of reality. And people don't realize that because we use so little of our brain. But as we begin to embody more and more and more and more, like we're the boat, we're all the people on the boat, we're the river, we're the spirit, we're Earth, we're the heavens, we're hell, we're everything. That's when we can really start to use more of our brain. And God created man in his own image, and so that God could live as a man and create as a God, as man. And a lot of these kids coming in have 30% brain power when they're born, and we very quickly dumb them down. We dumb them down. I'm not going to talk about why, but we dumb them down, and then if they're different or weird, we think they're weird, we think they're different, we call them crazy. But really what human beings are evolving into, or trying to evolve into, are God beings on Earth, so that we can create our own realities and create our own places and spaces to live together and mate and have kids and all that stuff, but also still create. So they're saying that living in poverty thinking, like living in the mind of thinking, oh, I need to do something hard in order to get something good. I need to work really hard in order to get a reward. I need to, fight with this person and work on our relationship for it to be good. That's the way of thinking of the man beast that feels like it needs to fight, eat, sleep, mate, kill. But when we can begin to realize that we're the one that created the essence, the soul, the boat, all these consciousnesses, then we are not so trapped in the consciousness part. Because the consciousness part is kind of a prisoner until you get into Christ consciousness. You're kind of a prisoner, and you're kind of trapped, either living on this boat, on the stream, or jumping off. And if you jump off, it's even worse. So what they're saying is learning to control our emotions. Once we can control our emotions and forgive and love and have compassion, then we don't have to necessarily be on that boat. Live in this world, but not of it. So we can live in it, but not be dragged along by it. And then we can step into our true higher self back here and just go, you know what? in that life that I'm living, I want this instead. And boom, it'll happen. It'll just come together. Because they're saying, just to get even more confusing, the soul is just an illusion. Think of it as we're looking down on a big thing of water. We're looking at a reflection of ourselves, and we're just creating stuff inside that reflection. So Jesus, if Papa lived lives with you, what does that mean? It means your consciousnesses that were in him, and the consciousness that's in you, those consciousnesses have lived together in many lives. Kind of like that movie, that show, The Travelers.
Yeah, I still haven't really watched.
Oh, we need to watch one episode of it at least. Travelers, it's about people that come from the future that go into people that are about to die, like 30 seconds before they die.
Oh, yeah, I've watched part of that, yeah.
Yeah, so
before they die, they go into another person.
Yeah, so the person would be someone that's riding on one of those boats, and the consciousness is one of these that goes into one of the people. So technically, we're just Marisa and Joe. Our consciousness that lives inside of us are the ones that are the ministers, are the ones that are here to help the world and grow and all that stuff. Probably prior to those consciousnesses jumping in us, however long ago, we were just like, just, doing what we do. And then consciousness from the other side went, let's jump into those two people and let's do this, So, that's reincarnation. So reincarnation is more like, what they're saying is just call it incarnation, and all of the lives that we're living are all parallel. They're all at the same time, and we can jump between those lives. So there's no real dying and coming back to life. Like Grandma Betty's consciousness will come to life in something else. Right now it's choosing to live in the astral body of Grandma Betty, and it's choosing to stay here and watch over her boys.
Any message? I know you got to get ready for your show. Any message that Jesus may be inspiring you to put out there to the world right now? That he has anything to say?
He said he wanted to teach a class tonight. I was like, whoa.
He's going to teach your class?
Yeah.
That's good.
Hold on, Peter. Peter, you always want to talk. He says, because I'm the best.
He's the one that taught everybody how to teach.
He's funny. He says,
it's okay. Peter has something to say.
Peter says, please let me talk. He says, as I step into this energy today, I bring unto you a better understanding of what you just said. He says, incarnation is a gift. He says, many beings that have quote unquote died, as you say, Joe. Their bodies have died. They identify with the dead body and they think that they are dead. When really we are always living. We are always alive. No matter what, we're always alive. So long as we have a spirit connected to the consciousness in which we are alive. We may not have a path, and we may not have an essence in which we are riding upon at that time, but that does not mean that we are dead. Many people feel as if they are dead right now. And what we'd like to say is bring life into yourself. Ask for your spirit to be ignited within you. Ask for your soul's essence to be connected to your mind, to your brain, to your human vessel. Ask that your body be cleared, be purified of all of the negative thoughts and emotions and feelings that you have pent up. All of you, many of you, look like bloated, he's saying bloated dead people, like everyone's skin is turning blue and like they can't breathe. He says, breathe life into yourself. Breathe air into yourself. Breathe clean air into yourself each day. Breathe, people, breathe. He's saying people aren't breathing. People are like this.
Fear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah, fear. He said people are just like, and he says everyone looks like they're dying. He says, we are here for the oxygen and the water. Enjoy it, people. Oh yeah, they say we came for the oxygen and the water, right? Yeah. He says, enjoy it, enjoy the water, enjoy the air, breathe life into yourself each day. Ask, even if you don't believe in God, if you don't believe in us, if you don't believe in these two here, he says, believe in yourself. Believe that there's something that makes you breathe in air, and there's something that makes you spit it back out. There's something that makes your heart beat and contract and retract and makes something that makes your brain think and your body move without you even thinking it. And that is God. That is God. But if you don't want to understand it as God, just understand it as the miracle that you are and feed that miracle. Because if you don't believe in God, then you're just a miracle right now. And when that miracle is over, you're gone. So you might as well enjoy it while you can. Enjoy life, live life, because you've got one opportunity to live this life as you, and it's right now, and it may be gone very soon. Not saying anything's ending, just saying you must enjoy every single moment. Don't say, oh, next lifetime I'll get to that. next lifetime I'll deal with that karma. No. It's now. It's now or never. Because then what happens is when your body passes, your consciousness will still be stuck on getting through certain things, and it'll be stuck over on the other side, living these occurrences over and over and over, trying to fix them in your own mind when it's very hard when you're not in a physical body. So having a physical body is a blessing. Thank God that you have one now. There are many that want them. They are lined up for them. There's not enough of them. So just be thankful that you have one now. We bless you.
Cool.
That was a ringing. Then that was not Peter. It was Peter, and then Matthew came and pushed him out of the way.
Oh, really?
That was Matthew. Matthew never talks.
Well, we had Matthew and Nathaniel in the lessons.
Oh, yeah. Peter was talking. He was like, oh, people, blah, blah. And Matthew just went, blah, and came and like knocked him out of the way. And Peter's like, hey. And Matthew just sat down and started talking. He's always in his nice little outfit with the little buttons.
He used to be a tax collector.
That's
he used
right.
to have really nice clothes.
But he's always poking the fire. And this time he wasn't poking the fire. He got up and actually came over and sat. All the guides are here. So if you guys want to come to class tonight, we're going to do meditation and healing and probably an attunement of some sort. When all the guides are here, we usually do an attunement of some sort, probably to the Christ consciousness. Oh, the Christ heart. Ooh, the golden Christ heart. What's the golden Christ heart good for? Happiness. It says happiness is good enough. We are happy, we're good. Julia, Peter.
Oh, you must have got a few new people in there. I already said hello to the people that kind of popped in.
I love Julia. Hi, Julia. I need to make sure I cover my mouth with my crown. I need to go see if I can stick that in my mouth so I don't laugh too hard and be like, Carney. Hi, guys. Yeah, my crown. It's a temporary one from my root canal that I got last week.
Oh.
Hi, guys. Hopefully I'll see you guys at class. If you can't afford it, just let me know or let Ann know. And then hopefully I'll see you guys there in about 40 minutes, okay? I'm going to start logging in now and setting the space for class. So if you want to log in now, you can log in now. Okay? I'll let you hit end because I don't want to mess it up.
Okay, all right.
I got my new little dress at the consignment store.
Oh, cool. You just got that dress?
Yeah.
That's neat. That's really cool. So anyway, Joe Morris, Answers Heaven Speaks. I'm glad that Marisa came back. We got a little bit of channeling into this lesson as well. We're going to be on the road tomorrow at about our normal time. So we may come in, just say hello. Marisa might have some things to say. Maybe I'll take over driving
We may have some
at
Ask
that
Jesus
time.
to play for them because we're going to listen to Ask Jesus and maybe channel to that or something.
I don't know if we can do it on the road.
I can play it on the radio, on the stereo, and we can have it playing, and they can listen to it, and then we can cut in and channel to it or whatever.
Oh, well, we may have something very interesting tomorrow. It won't be the continuing story of Jesus, but we may go into our own book of conversations with Jesus tomorrow. So thanks, everybody, for hanging in here all the way. I really appreciate it. God appreciates it. Jesus loves it. And so does Marisa.
Yeah.
So anyway, again, Joe Morris with Answers Heaven Speaks. God willing, we'll be back with you tomorrow. In the meantime, have yourselves a great night. And
Come to meditation.
as Marisa says, come to meditation. DiscoverIntuition.com. That's where you're going to find all kinds of stuff. All right. So thanks again, you guys. Take care. And we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.